My daughter is treating my son like he's dead to her. I'm at the end of my rope and desperate for some input. This is a throwaway for the obvious sensitive reasons below. My husband and I have DD17 and DS14. They have never been overly close siblings, but weren't sworn enemies either. Just two different kids with two different personalities, but as long as everyone was respectful, that was okay with me. When DD was 10, she was the victim of abuse by a family member that saw them convicted and go to jail. She was in intensive therapy for years, and we are so proud of the strong, confident, and intelligent young woman she is today. She has always, however, been very private about it. Besides our family, her lifelong best friend her parents knew, and that was it. My son, however, knew about the abuse too. He flippantly told some friends about it 2 months ago, and before you know it, the whole school knew. DD was devastated, to say the least. She's been back in counseling since and has been coping as well as possible. This counseling has come at a financially really tough time for us and is obviously worth every penny, but the fact that we can't afford more counseling factors into the other part of this. DD blew up at DS when this first happened, and he saw the fallout of her coping with this firsthand. But since that night where she found out, he told people and word was going around. She hasn't spoken a word to him. She doesn't look at him when he enters a room, or react when he speaks directly to her, or about her, or anything else of the sort. For example, at dinner, she'll speak to us and he'll chime in, and she continues the conversation as though he hadn't said anything. DS has tried daily to talk to her and apologized, begged, pleaded, and cried, and it's always the same. She'll usually crack a book, look at her phone, put some AirPods in, and ignore him completely. She won't discuss it with me besides to say that he's dead to her, and she has no intention of ever seeing or speaking to him again when she moves out in 10 months, and she hasn't wavered even a bit in that sentiment since. I'm at a complete loss. DS is on total lockdown. He's lost his phone, video games, any sort of privilege or ability to do things with friends. He essentially goes to school, comes home, does his homework and goes to bed, and he knows we are devastated and beyond disappointed. I believe he's sincerely sorry and contrite. He's broken down crying and apologizing to us more times than I can count, but I'm unsure of how to proceed. We can't afford family counseling, and DD's personal counselor won't talk to me about what she says to her about any of this, besides to say not to push her on anything. I know she has every right to be furious, but at the same time, I can't help but feel like it's also not mentally healthy for my son to be treated as though he literally doesn't exist in his home for the next year. I know it's a natural consequence, but it's gut-wrenching to see and be living with. Not to mention, as a mom, I don't want my kids to be permanently estranged. It breaks my heart. Has anyone else experienced anything even in the ballpark of this that could offer any advice? Update. I posted about our issues last year, where my son joked about my daughter's CSA to friends in an attempt to be edgy. She stopped speaking to him and said he was dead to her, despite living in the same house as him. I want to thank people for the advice, some of it harsh but necessary. Unfortunately, things have not gotten better. My son's grounding came to an end, and he got supervised access to his phone, video games, and friends back. My daughter was livid with us about it, and no amount of explanation that continual punishment for a year wasn't an option made that understandable to her. I get that from her point of view, but it began to strain her relationship with me and her dad too. She still ignored my son, and he still cried and was depressed over it. I booked 3 sessions of expensive family counseling and made her come, but she just kept her earbuds on, with music playing, the entire time. She turned 18 in January. My son dipped into his savings to get her a necklace. I gave it to her and told her it was from him after she opened it, and she threw it away. Within a few days, she had moved out and into her best friend's parents' house without telling us she was going to. I invited her home for Easter, and she didn't come because her brother, who had nowhere else to go, would be here. I'm still at a loss. Her graduation is next week, and we weren't formally invited by her. We basically got an "I guess you can come" when I asked. My son obviously isn't invited, and he's still struggling mentally with all of this. Therapy and medication hasn't helped much, but our options of what we can afford are very limited. Has anyone been here? I never dreamed of having children estranged from each other and a daughter who pulled away from us over her brother's idiotic mistake. Next story. Am I the butthole for cutting my dad off if he misses my graduation? So I'm 18M and I have a half-brother who is the same age as me. We'll call him Cameron. Our dad got 2 women pregnant around the same time. I'm older by 6 months. My dad chose Cameron's mom over mine and they're married now. Cameron is his parents' only child. Anyway, so I've always felt like I was just a backup son for my dad. I know he does love me, but not as much as Cameron. I live an hour and a half away from him, but he would always make the drive to come see me when I was younger and still does to this day. If I ever need anything, he'll make sure I get it. He took me on trips all the time with just me and him. But still I felt like an outsider. He would constantly put me second to Cameron. If we both had sports games on the same day, he would always go to Cameron's with his wife. Once when I had an award ceremony, he couldn't come because Cameron was sick. It was just a cold BTW. When I wanted him to teach me how to drive, he said he couldn't because he promised Cameron he would teach him first, but that he'd help me after Cameron got his license. I could list off a bunch of other examples. My dad would show up to my stuff, but if Cameron had something going on at the same time, he wouldn't come. Cameron and I aren't friends. We get along fine if we're together, but neither of us is going out of the way to talk to the other. I think he's spoiled and obviously our dad's favorite. Our dad and his mom did him no favors because his grades are bad and his life has no direction. He didn't apply to any colleges and he won't even get a part-time job. We're both graduating high school this year. His school district released their graduation schedule after mine, and of course our graduations are on the same day at the same time. We live an hour and a half apart, so obviously our dad can't make it to both. He's known my graduation date for weeks before Cameron learned his. We already had plans for him to come and spend the day here. But I knew as soon as I saw that schedule he was gonna flake. At first he said he wasn't sure what he was gonna do. He's been avoiding the topic for weeks, but our graduations are on the 29th, so he has to decide now. Well, yesterday he took me to dinner. He told me that he was going to go to Cameron's graduation. He said it was because Cameron's grandparents weren't going to be able to make it and Cameron would only have his mom, while I have my mom, stepdad, siblings, and grandparents all coming to mine. I'm not an idiot. It was just an excuse that I knew would be coming. He tried to soften the blow by promising me he'd make up for it by taking me on a graduation trip anywhere I wanted to go, even though he had already promised me that months ago. He's taking his wife and Cameron on a family trip to Hawaii in June. It's supposed to be Cameron's graduation trip, but he promised he and I would have our own trip. Now all of a sudden that trip is supposed to also be a makeup for missing my graduation. So I told him, okay, I want to go to this one weekend event that is on the same week he's going to Hawaii. He told me he can't because that's when they're going to Hawaii. I didn't actually want to go to this event. I was just proving a point. I told him to postpone his Hawaii trip so he can take me to the event. He said he can't because everything is already paid for and non-refundable. I told him that he's missing my high school graduation. The least he can do is make me the priority when it comes to the graduation trips. He said I'd have to pick a different weekend. I told him he doesn't actually care about making it up to me. He's only okay with what I want so long as it doesn't interfere with his real family. He denied it and told me to try to understand the position he's in. I told him straight up that he always chooses Cameron over me. For once I want to be the first choice, so I said I'll have a ticket ready for him, but that if he doesn't come I'll know where I stand in his life. I don't care about a makeup trip. Either he shows up and we still have a relationship, or I'm just done with him. He told me that I was being unreasonable, and maybe I am, but I'm still standing my ground. I already know he's not going to come, even after my ultimatum. So am I the butthole for throwing away our entire relationship over this? Update. Some people wanted an update to my post. My graduation was on Wednesday. Surprising everyone, especially me, my dad actually chose me and my graduation. Not at first, but he did come. So what happened after I gave him the ultimatum was he kept trying to talk to me as if nothing was wrong. He was asking me to spend time with him a lot and asking when I was free. Basically either feeling guilty or trying to compensate for choosing Cameron. I never met with him. Cameron messaged me to tell me to stop being an butthole and to get over it cause apparently our dad was stressed out over the whole thing. I just blocked Cameron and moved on. On the day of my graduation, my dad told me he was coming down to spend the day with me before he had to go home to go to Cameron's graduation. At first I told him not to bother cause there's point in showing up here if you're just gonna leave before the actual ceremony, but he ended up coming anyway. We had a small get-together at my house with my mom's side of the family. My dad was there acting as if nothing was wrong. It was annoying. I refused to take pictures with him because I told him I'm taking pictures at my graduation. If you want pictures with me, you can show up. A few hours before the ceremony, he said he had to head out. I said goodbye forever, and he pulled me aside to talk. He was trying to justify his decision again. I told him I was serious about what I said. I will not talk to him ever again. I made it clear that this isn't something I'm going to be mad about for a bit and then get over. I'm not going to call him crying in a few years saying I'm sorry. He asked why I was being like this, and I just let it all out. I told him I'm sick and tired of being second place all the time. My entire life I've been told that he can't show up for me because Cameron needs him or he promised Cameron first. Yet the one time I had my graduation date set and planned first, he still cancels on me for Cameron. I asked him to give me one good reason why he has to go to Cameron's graduation over mine, specifically. No, this is a tough situation. I can't be in two places at once, etc. He said because if he doesn't go to Cameron's graduation, he has to deal with a pissed-off wife and his entire home life will be tense. I asked him why can't his wife and Cameron ever be the ones he apologizes to and asks to try to understand. Why do I always have to be purposely handed the short straw? He didn't have an answer. I told him I hope Cameron gets his life together because right now he's on a nosedive trajectory that ends with him still living at home rent-free in his 30s with a girlfriend he can't afford to give a ring to, let alone a wedding, and 3 kids who are being raised by my dad's wife. I didn't care anymore at that point. It's true. Cameron's a loser. And I told my dad good luck cause he's the one that's taking care of you when you're old. I'm out. I guarantee Cameron takes their money and puts his parents in the absolute cheapest nursing home he can find. They failed him by spoiling him and treating him like he's perpetually 5 years old. Dad still ended up leaving anyway. I refused to hug him and told him I'm done with him. That kinda ruined my mood, but once I got to school and started hanging with my friends, I decided to let it go. I wanted to enjoy my grad night and just forget all the crap. After the ceremony, I was shocked to see my dad walking towards me. I was positive he was going to Cameron's graduation. Like gun to my head, get this answer right or you die. Well, I guess I'd be dead cause I was 100% sure he'd choose Cameron. He already did, but I guess he turned around and came back. So he hugged me and told me that he's sorry for everything and how he's treated me and that he does love me just as much as Cameron, even if he's been bad at showing it. I don't really believe that last part, but he showed up, so that's what I'm focusing on. Cameron was pissed of course and messaged me from a different number. He was calling me a crybaby and selfish, saying Dad only went to my graduation because I threw a fit. He doesn't understand that it wasn't me having a tantrum. It was a last straw situation for me. I just sent him a picture of me and our dad at my graduation and told him to get over it. Then I blocked that number too. F him. I'm glad he knows what it's like to be second choice just once. I'm sure our dad is already bending over backwards to make it up to Cameron anyway, so he'll live. Our joint graduation party is gonna be awkward, but hopefully we'll just keep our distance from each other. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not delusional. I know my dad is just gonna go back to his same old routine. And now if I ever bring up his unfairness again, he'll always be able to throw in my face that he came to my graduation over Cameron's. It'll probably be his trump card. NGL, it did feel good to have everyone crap on my dad with me in my last post cause I was pissed off at him when I posted. I know that he does love me though. Still, I think I'm gonna take some advice I got in that post. I'm not cutting my dad off, but I'm gonna stop trying. I have a lifetime of him awarding me the silver medal, no matter how well I do, and I'm tired of it. Cameron can be his favorite son uncontested from now on. I'm just gonna live my life and keep my dad at an arm's length. I'm not gonna try to force him to prove his love for me anymore. Next story. Am I the butthole for not wanting to go back to my wife until she has custody of her children from her previous marriage after her son falsely accused me of hitting him? Bit of background. I 40M have been married to my wife 40F for 5 years. She has a son 10M and a daughter 8F from her previous marriage. I have one daughter 7F from my previous marriage. About a month ago, her son accused me of hitting him. I never put my hands on him or anyone. My wife confronted me and I denied it. She didn't believe me. After the argument, I went to cool off and talked to my friend. He was worried, very worried, and said that I should get the F out of the house with my daughter. He said that I am a man and no one is going to believe me and I could lose my daughter if things escalate. I finally understood the gravity of situation I am in. After a long walk, I made up my mind. I went to my house and asked my wife to come talk to me. I said that I never hit him. I don't know why he said it and I don't want to know anymore. I told her that I am not feeling safe in this house and I don't want to risk my future and my daughter's future. I told her I understand her mama bear mindset, so I won't blame her for not believing me, but last place I want to be is anywhere near a mama bear. I packed my bags and my daughter's bag and we left for my parents' house. I refused to take her calls and asked her to only contact me through message essence. It's not legal in my state to record without consent of both parties. Her messages ranged from blaming me to blaming herself and wanting to talk in person. 3 weeks later, she messaged me and told me that she believes me. When I left, she actually started to question her son's allegations and obvious inconsistencies started to emerge. She realized that her son is full of crap. She apologized profusely and begged me to come back. I refused. I told her that I can't risk it anymore. I don't trust her children and I don't trust her to believe me. I can't risk it. She asked me what I want her to do, give up her kids' custody, and I said, honestly, I do love her and I do want to stay with her, but I can't risk it to be with her anymore if her kids are staying with us. I told her I am sorry and I don't expect her to leave her kids, so I think it's best if we move forward with separation. Turns out she is actually considering giving up the custody of her kids. His ex-husband called me and asked me why his ex-wife is talking about giving up custody. I told him the truth and he was very angry with her son, but more angry with my wife. He respected me enough to not push it further when I told him to sort it out with my wife. So we are in middle of crap storm and I am not budging. I can't stay in same house as her children. I am getting bombarded by phone calls of people blaming me for making my wife abandon her children. But what other choice do I have? I can't risk going back now. Am I the butthole? After I made the previous post, I made the decision to file for divorce and told my wife. Literally the next day my wife told me that she is pregnant. I am gonna be honest, I didn't believe her. It was too convenient of a time. I took some time to process it and asked her if she would agree for me to accompany her to the doctor's appointment. She agreed. She was 12 weeks pregnant. We had a talk and I told her that we're gonna have to do our best to co-parent the baby. She made promise that she will make sure her son behaves from now on, that I will not have to worry about anything. I told her that I am not risking my future on her word considering how easily she believed her son over me. I told her that I am not even blaming her. It's not like she was wrong in doing so. So we are definitely getting a divorce. She is scared to go through pregnancy all alone, but what other choice do we even have? We're gonna have to do our best. Another child will be raised in a broken family. Her relationship with her son has gone to the dogs. He is currently living with his father, and she refusing to talk to him. I can't find it in myself to judge her. She is going to have to go through pregnancy in her 40s, which in itself is complicated enough. On top of that, she is going to have to navigate her divorce. Add her pregnancy hormones to the mix, and it's just easier to just not talk to her son. All because she believed her lying son. I did talk to her ex-husband, and he and his wife are also struggling. His son is not doing well by his mother basically ghosting him. I guess the stern talking to that one person recommended in my previous post is not needed anymore. He has gotten pretty good idea of how much he messed up. I guess we are in the situation where everyone loses. My daughter is only one who is left relatively unscathed. She is adjusting pretty well to the new apartment. She is getting into new routine, all thanks to my friend who warned me in time and helped me shield her from the crap show. Postscript: people who were sent me DMs to see how I was doing and for updates, etc. Forgive me for not replying. I was very preoccupied with all things going on. I logged on to this account for the first time since I made the earlier post. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel James Stories.